There we go. Good. Welcome everybody to another conversation on the Dog Centre Care YouTube channel. Got my dear friend Sindhoor here today, and we've had some amazing conversations over the years, Sindhoor. But sadly today is on a very specific topic, and some of you will be aware about what's potentially going to be happening in India, and seen some of the posts. And Sindhoor and I thought it would be good to add an extra dimension to this really and give you the opportunity to share Sindor about what is happening over there, think about the bigger picture, think about some of the nuances. So good to see you, my friend.
Yeah, thanks, Andy. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you for wanting to talk about this. Thank you for everything that you have done over the years, but also the last few months. You've been just such a silent source of strength for me. Just thank you.
Well, thank you for that. And I think God, it was only last year we were literally in the same room together, and now we just feel so far away, especially at a time like this. But okay, so now tell us a bit about then, well, but tell us about let's start from the beginning, I guess, for those people tuning in, about a little bit of the history about what's happening here.
Right. So the madness for us began on August 11th, when there was a Supreme Court order based on a suo motu case, there wasn't really anybody filing a case, but two judges decided to wake up on August 11th and pass an order that all the free living dogs of India, the Streeties, they were specifically, if I'm not mistaken, at that time they were talking about Delhi. All the free living dogs of Delhi need to be removed and moved to shelters. And that sent the country in a tizzy because where will these dogs go? The estimate is that there's anywhere between 6 to 8 million free living dogs, maybe even up to 10 million free living dogs in Delhi alone. And so where will they go? There aren't enough government shelters to put them in there. And so it made no sense. And it was a unnecessarily harshly worded order. And it claimed that it was based on a newspaper article of a child who had died of rabies, which turns out the child died of meningitis, not rabies, wasn't bitten by a dog, and died not because of anything to do with an animal. It was to do with the terrible, terrible class-based structures of India. And so the child was denied hospital care for several hours, and that's what caused the child's death. And there was, I think, an initial incorrect medical report, which was then corrected, but that didn't seem to matter. The newspapers picked that up. Some newspapers picked that up and went reported on it quite gladly. And we know we've reached a day and age where there seems to be no accountability for media reporting. Nobody is asking them the facts, so they just report whatever they feel like. So nobody questioned. This was reported. It was sensationalist. People love reporting it. And the order, and it did not go to court, but the judges decided to act on that media report and come out with this order, and the country was up in arms. There were lots of protests. So on the 22nd of August, another bench sat on it, 3-member bench sat on it and said, hey, wait, hold on. No, we don't have to remove the dogs. Remove just the dogs that are, perform animal birth control procedures and vaccinate them. So what we call ABC and ARV, anti-rabies vaccine and animal birth control. So you do ABC, ARV, and then you return them back to where they belong as per the law of this land. Subsequently, there have been multiple instances where the court has sat on this, and they On the 7th of November, again, it was two people who just came and said that it was not just in Delhi, but across the country. All the dogs in institutions, educational institutions, campuses, bus stops, airports, hospitals need to be removed and not returned. And our estimate of the number of free living dogs of this country is somewhere close to 100 million. We don't have shelters for them. So remove them and do what? They don't want to say cull them or kill them. So they want to sound humane. So they've said remove them and put them in shelters, like the shelters are going to magically appear. And of course, I think all of us know what these shelters mean. Shelters in wealthy, rich countries are still hellholes for dogs. We know that. Shelters in a country like India, I don't even want to picture that, right? And shelters that are going to apparently get built by Jan 13th. So built in a hurry for this number. This is, I don't know. I don't know how to even articulate what this is. But apart from the horrible fate that is going to await all of us, there are other things to consider. This is not the first time this is being done in India. 70% of the world's dogs are free-living dogs, which means that they exist in many countries, and many countries are trying this, have tried this in small pockets and large numbers. And what we know is every time you remove a stable group, that too many of these groups have been vaccinated, many have been neutered. So when you start removing these groups where we have spent years working on them and stabilizing their population and getting them healthy, when you remove them, there's an ecological impact. And we can talk about that in a bit. The dogs are not going anywhere. They're going to come back, and they come back in larger numbers, usually double the number. That's going to have an impact as well. And these are new dogs. And rabies is used as the number one reason for all of this. But repeatedly, studies show us that an action of this kind increases rabies. So I think just today I was looking at a case study from Bali, a village in Bali, where there were no instances of rabies, and they went ahead and culled all the dogs, and then had an instance, 2 cases of rabies registered after that, after the cull. And rabies numbers are so small in India. So I've been trying to work on many aspects of these things, and one of them happens to be technology. So I've been trying to look at data to see if we can use rabies data to figure out where are we failing. And so I contacted a friend of mine who works on large data and health systems, and I said, I need a large data expert to advise me. I'm looking for rabies data and how to extract it and extrapolate it. And he was like, if you're looking for rabies data, you need to be working with somebody who works on small data, not large data, because that number is so significantly small. Which, of course, brings us, in a country like India, it brings us to a lot of questions, right? If it is so small, why are we focusing on that? And there are so many other issues in a country like India. Why are they being incorrectly reported? So yeah, that's where we're at.
I can hear how emotional this is for you. Uh, it's from the outside looking in, it just seems something that's um such a big broad brush that's been coming along very quickly without any real evidence about what that brush is supposed to do or what the motivation is in the first place. So when we think about rabies, then I'm guessing there's not even that good a data about the prevalence of rabies in regards to people getting it from dogs.
Yeah, it's, I mean, rabies, we can talk about rabies for such a long time because I've been sitting with the rabies experts, we have achieved rabies control in pockets of India. There are about 7 cities, I think, across the country where we've done some really good work, really good headway in making them rabies free. And repeatedly, and this is a WHO recommendation on how do we get to rabies free, and none of them includes culling or killing of dogs or removal of dogs, because that is a dangerous thing to do. So the way we deal with rabies is to achieve 70% herd immunity, right? We have to get up to 70% of the dog population. Once we get to that, and we have been working tirelessly on this for decades to get to this place, befriending these dogs, feeding them. And it's not just vaccinating them, because we vaccinate them and we neuter them. When you neuter them, you stabilize the population. So you're dealing with the stable population, and then getting to 70% is it's not a moving target anymore, right? It's a doable target. When we get there, and then you remove the dogs that we just got them, right? We got them healthy, and if you remove them, and then there are new dogs that are going to be moving in. So there's something called the vacuum effect that happens. Every ecosystem has a holding capacity, an ability to support life. Life is life. Life has a way of defying our human ego and anthropocentrism and exist any which way. If you remove a species entirely, one of two things is going to happen, most likely both. A whole new set of species come to occupy this space, which is dangerous, because in our case, it's going to be rats, rodents, and snakes. Rodents bring rabies with them. Best of luck vaccinating 70% of the rodents that come in. How are you planning to do that? With dogs, it's so easy. Free-living dogs, you flash a smile at them and they're all over you. When I had to vaccinate these three, neuter these three, I didn't have to call a catcher. I called them, picked them up, carried them, planted a kiss on their head, and put them in the van and sent them off for neutering. That's how easy it is with dogs. I can't do that with rats. I'm good with animals, but not that good, And
So
they
if you
bring with them leptospirosis and plague as well. And we have data that when you do a mass skull, and if that gets followed up with any ecological event, like, for instance, a flooding or, God forbid, an earthquake or something of that kind, uh, that then tips things over. So you're going to have diseases, not only rabies, but other diseases like lepto and plague, but worse still, and this should be scary for all of us, novel diseases. If novel diseases come up in a large country like India, we're gifting it left, right, and center to the world, right? The last time we had a pandemic, it came from a rodent in the sky. Let's not forget that. This is not an India issue alone. This is going to be scary if things go haywire. And of course, the second thing that's going to happen with the vacuum effect is that eventually the dog populations come back, bringing along with them diseases, because it's a new population that's unvaccinated that's coming back.
Yes, and a population that isn't as street savvy regarding people and engaging in communities and all these kind of things. Before we come on to a really obvious question about what else is actually happening here, behind this, if we just look at what is happening, the threat of this, two questions, I think, for me. How likely is this to actually happen in this way? Because obviously we all know governments can change their mind at the last minute and it doesn't actually quite play out that way. And secondly, are there legal challenges still going on?
So this court hearing was very emphatic, and so all the municipal, and it was proactive too. It wasn't. I was hoping that even if they do this, it would be more like, if somebody complained about the dogs, then you pick them up. And so I felt like it still gave us room to work with people to say, don't complain about them. We'll try and figure out what your problems are and solve them. But this order is proactive in that it's asked municipal bodies, civic bodies, to go proactively out and map the dogs find the institutions where there are dogs, whether or not there are complaints, it's irrelevant, and actually pick them all up. And so municipal bodies, civic bodies have already started doing the work. What's worse still, and that's if they were to do this legally, there's no way for them to do it because India doesn't have the money to construct adequate number of shelters to pick them up and put them in shelters. So if they were to follow this order as uh, it it has been prescribed, we still have checks and balances in place. But the problem is that this has a lot of people have gone trigger happy there. So there are people picking the dogs up illegally. There are people picking them up and we don't know what they're doing with these dogs. They're just disappearing. And I think that is a bigger problem that we're facing. It is being appealed in court again. There are multiple petitioners who are appealing in court again, but we don't know if that's going to have any impact. There are a few steps of escalation available still, but it's not as much the court that's the problem. It's the government structure itself that's the problem. And the other thing that I do want to point out is that I think for us, and I think many of my friends, for instance, in the US, will be able to relate to this, is that this is it is a scary proposition because this is not just about dogs, it's about the judicial system itself. How is that two people can risk the lives and safety of a billion, a country of a billion, without even listening to a single expert?
So
People
who's
in the court, they are legal experts, but they are not experts on ecological experts. They are not ethological experts. They're not experts on public health and disease, large-scale disease, epidemics. They're not experts on dog behavior. Shouldn't they all have been heard before a decision of this magnitude is taken? So that is the scary part, really.
So who's been presenting the science? Has there been an opportunity for people to present the science? And is this a possible way in to kind of get this process to slow down or maybe even get paused because there will be an argument that your judicial process hasn't listened to the evidence?
That is the scary bit, right? Since August 11th, this is what I've been doing, is working with the petitioners, all the people who have been admitted into court. These are petitioners. So the petitioners were asked to pay up, and they've all paid up in a significant size chunk of money. They were all asked to pay. And only the petitioners who were arguing in favor of the dogs were asked to pay. The petitioners who were against them were not asked to pay. That's okay. We can park that aside. But having paid, they are owed their day in court, but they were not given that. And that was the scary part about what happened on November 7th, is that I was in touch with them constantly, and I was like, hey guys, so what's going on? And I prepped them for months, working, with the data, putting them together with the scientists, and getting them familiar with everything, and preparing documents that are readable for low attention span people, all of that. And I was like, so how did it go? Did you guys present? And we were promised on November, I think, 3rd, if I'm not mistaken, on November 3rd, we were promised that all parties will be heard. And on November 7th, nobody was heard. Nobody. It was just a decision taken just like that. And I think that is, to me, that is the scary part, because why does this is due process being completely bypassed, right?
Why?
And that is a whole other challenge that's coming up.
What's been the response in India? Is it one of shock and outrage generally? Is there a big pushback within India itself about these plans?
Yeah, definitely. So our data shows us that 70% of India doesn't feel negatively about dogs. This is what our data shows us. That still leaves with 30% who do. So they are, of course, seem to be having a party about it, which tells us terrible things about humankind itself, right? That you're actually celebrating that so many living beings are going to die, but that's a whole other thing. But 70% of India doesn't feel negatively about dogs. Not all of them necessarily feel strongly enough to act or act on this. But those who do, the people who have been providing care for these dogs, there are many, many of them. Considering that we have 100 million dogs, you can imagine there are a lot of people who actually care for them. They are, I would say, at this moment, they are just shocked. They're numb. I'm not seeing enough outrage. There is a lot of outrage. We are seeing protests. Yesterday, I think the protests started on Saturday, and they're happening all over the country. They're right now still in smaller numbers. I expect it to gain momentum. Gain momentum for all the wrong reasons. It's so hard for me to talk about what's coming next because this is not good news, right? Terrible things are going to happen, which are going to drive people to protest more. But right now, I think it's just complete shock. We never anticipated this. We never saw this coming our way. This is not our country. This is not us. So people are just like deer caught in headlight.
So the question I kind of teased a few minutes ago about what do you think is really happening here then? Why, with all the things that are going on, not just in India, but in the world, has the government decided to throw so much at this? It doesn't make sense looking from the outside in.
It doesn't make sense, but a lot of what's happening in the country doesn't make sense. Um, there are theories and speculations around that it could be, and again, we are seeing this pattern all over the world, right? It's just distraction from other things that are happening. Um, it could be flexing to show that, hey, we can bypass the judicial system too and do what we want to. It could be that. I honestly don't know. Um, yeah, anything I say would just be speculation. I don't know. I wish I knew. It would help us strategize a little bit better on
Mm.
how to combat this. But quite honestly, it is shocking. And I think that is the reason why we are all shocked, because nothing led up to this, right? This is just so totally out of the blue. It makes no sense. It makes no sense that little innocent animals, friendly, furry animals, um, are being persecuted in this manner, in such a harsh manner, and it's just not clear what it is. And they've just picked up, of course, there will be people who don't like dogs. Of course, there will be people who have grievances with these dogs. And there are people who have gone to court as well with this, and they've just picked up all of those as an excuse and simply refusing to look at data.
What about the international response, as in bigger international welfare agencies? Because I have to say, I know about this from you and from other colleagues and friends over on your continent. I don't see it in our media. It's not in our media. It's not in any of our press. I in some of the kind of animal welfare and science, animal science groups that I'm in, nobody's mentioning it.
Yeah. So the media response, international media response has been non-existent. I know that people who have been following me are expressing shock and thank you for the support I could do with it. It's really helped me a lot. It's helped me a lot personally, right? But has it helped the cause? I don't know really, because we do need media response, and it has been non-existent. And I'd say that uh, that there should be. I mean, people outside the country should be bothered by this, because what happens here is not, this is the interconnectedness of things. And if the pandemic taught us anything, that we cannot expect something that happens in one part of the world and we can remain isolated by it, right? Large risks of large diseases, especially epidemics. Sorry, I'm not very articulate because this is so emotional, but it's not large diseases, epidemics. Should be concerning all of us. And so the media outside the country should be talking about this. But I suspect at this point, the gravity of it hasn't occurred to a lot of people. And sadly, I think we are living in a day and age where, and probably we always did, I don't know, where political posturing matters more. So this seems to be very personal for the government for some reason. It's almost like an ego issue for the government for some reason. Um, and I don't know how many people are willing to necessarily take that on for dogs, free living dogs, that too, right? So they're so low on people's priority list that I I don't think that people are very eager to take that on. And of course, the other part of it is many of you who have been following me understand how precious these dogs are, and their value, their inherent value, and their value to us. And many of you listening to this talk will also understand their value in the ecology of things, and the role they play in public health. But unfortunately, I think large media houses across the globe don't look at it that way, and so have in the past, and that's kind of led to this problem as well, but have in the past negatively reported about these dogs, used them for um, sort of pushing an idea of a civilized world that does not look like this with these dogs around. So they have been sort of the villains of the story. And there has been biased reporting with huge emphasis on when there is human dog conflict, especially with free living dogs. The kind of emphasis that it gets in international media is significantly more than the everyday stories of coexistence. I mean, how many of us have even read a single article about that, right? Who
Mm.
actually says, "Oh, this is so great about India. Look at these sweet dogs." That never makes it into popular media. And so I think there's a large mind shift that I don't think is going to happen very quickly. But hey, here I am talking to all of you guys. If any of you can change that in any way, I'll take it.
Well, I think we have to think about that because, when we get off air today, and well, it'll be tomorrow now because it's Sunday here, but I'm going to try and get this in front of some people that I know within media side of things because, and anybody in different countries, we got somebody here saying that they're in Canada. Somebody saying actually what's happening over there with the dog sounds very similar to what's happening in the US with ICE and this kind of way of finding an enemy to target, whether it's human or animal, I think. I do think what I know about the general population here in the UK, it's a two-sided thing. One, people are really kind of they get very angry about what they perceive to be the mistreatment of animals. The flip side of that is many don't perceive how they treat the animals themselves, which is just a nature of these kind of things, bit of a conundrum. But definitely, I think the general public here in the UK and many other parts of the world will be absolutely shocked about what's going to happen because actually the story here is it is the removal of these dogs. This is not the kind of nice fluffy ending. They all find a home and it's all wonderful and what this actually kind of represents. And I think we do need the press to get onto it. I think we've got people like say Joe Middleton, if you're listening, Joe, but I'm going to contact you anyway, who goes to Parliament and speaks at the App Dog, which is all the MPs who are interested in dog welfare. I think we just need to try and push this as much as we can. So definitely, if you're listening into this and you are somebody who has connections on a small level or a bigger level, I think we just got to get some ripples going here to give you all a sense that there's the rest of the world is looking in because that's one thing that can pressure government sometimes to think
Yeah,
about
yeah.
what's going
So
on.
So towards that end, let me tell you that we've been working on co-authoring a document with some of the very significant players in this, right? So scientists and people who have been working with rabies eradication and have been working in a very systematic way with tracking data. So Mission Rabies is one of those large, lovely organizations that has been doing excellent work in eradicating rabies, and that's been their agenda. And so, working with people like that, people who have watched this and tracked this for many years. And so, we are trying to create a kind of a co authored scholarship on it, which please take that from me. I will publish it soon on our website. But if you decide to go anywhere with it, take that from me. It has all the references, and so make a well-informed argument. Right, understand the whole aspect of this, And when I say understand the full picture here, I mean understand why we need a One Health approach to epidemics that come through zoonosis, right? Zoonotic diseases need a One Health approach. And what does that mean? What is the public health risk? So it's not even about dogs at this point, right? What is the public health risk of doing something like this? What is the risk to international health of doing something like this? And then, of course, the other aspect of it is the ethics of it. Who are we allowing ourselves to become? And who are we? What is the legacy that we're passing on to our children? If a country like India lets go of its compassion, who has hope, right? This is the country where we're supposed to have modeled this. If India lets it go, it's really bad news for our conscience as a species. So I think all those arguments together need to be made in a very non-emotional way. I'm not in a very non-emotional place, but the scholarship is well written, so please take that and use it.
Well, that's important. I think this is the compelling side, of course, because for us that kind of love dogs and love your work, our first response is an emotional one. But actually, you very well articulated here the bigger picture here, because here in the UK, somebody decided that we had a problem with bovine TB and that badgers were the problem, so we're going to cull badgers, and the government decided to do it in a certain area of the UK and kill these innocent badgers, really. And they actually found bovine TB went up for the exact reasons you're talking about. This is the
Yeah,
point.
yeah,
Luckily for the badgers, for the rest of the badgers, the government decided, we'll do a little trial here. That's not even what the government are looking at over there. And I think that the scientific evidence and the risks and dangers are huge here for what you're talking about. And like you say, you're going to be in a situation with that bigger issue down the line, and nothing will have changed. Nothing will have benefited from this.
yeah.
And I think
This
that's
is
such a compelling. Go on.
Sorry, this is it's not even like this is the first time we're trying this. So this has been tried in this country for 100 years. 100 years, not with gaps. 100 years of consistent trying to remove these dogs, and they're still here. And that was the case that was initially made to the Madras Corporation to say, you've tried this for 100 years, here's the data, you have failed grandly, let's try another approach, right? And that was a data driven argument which apparently worked then, apparently better sense prevailed then, but hey, it doesn't seem to be the case now. Now we have so much more data from so many parts of the world on what's going to happen, but yeah, nobody's listening to data. And I think the other thing, of course, which I would urge people in my country, and of course, in other parts of the world too, is to start wondering if we've reached a point where our existing power structures have reached the end of what they can do. Um, these judicial systems, these laws that we trusted are there to protect us. And it seems we have built structures now where one individual can come and say, hey, you know what? I'm in the mood to mess with the entire country and their
Mm.
health. And I'll just do it just like that.
Well, there are shadows of this, of course, in wider politics. I think, especially the notion of breaking down institutions and so um, where do you feel are the glimmers of hope in this story, if there are any, in regards to what might be? And another kind of side question to that is, do you think there will be communities within India? I'm sure lots of it is relatively regional, I'm sure, but who will refuse for this to happen? Who will get out there and, blockade streets and do whatever needs to be done?
You know, I saw a video of a bunch of children in school uniforms in pigtails standing with their teacher, making a video with their two dogs there, Motu, Chotu, whatever, two dogs there. And they're like, these are our dogs. We're not letting them go.
Mm.
And my first reaction was to just, and they were standing there and begging, right? And I was like, uh, is are these the power structures that we have that we are making our children are vulnerable most, our children come out and fight this. But the other part of it, that when you ask for hope, right, that's the other part of it, which is uh, they're also shining a light on where that resistance can come from. We don't need power to resist. We can be kids in pigtails and we can resist the,
Yeah.
the highest court of the country, right? Um, to me, all the schools, colleges that are actually refusing and resisting, I think gives me a lot of hope. All the people who are showing up to the protests, every time I see them, they're putting their bodies on the lines for dogs that are not even theirs, dogs they may possibly haven't even met. I feel such honor that I get to live in this country amongst these people. Um, I feel gutted that we are having our children fight these battles for us. What have we left them? Is this the world we have left them? I feel gutted, but the fact that they're fighting gives me hope. Apparently, from somewhere, they've picked up the right thing, not from us for sure. Um, and so, and this country has in the past repeatedly fought this. This is not the first time we're fighting it. Um, the first record I saw of it was from like 1857 or 18, something like that, where the British Raj was opposed and there were riots in Mumbai to oppose the removal of street dogs. So we have a long history of fighting very hard for these animals. And so I don't feel alone at all. Every time I see people out there protesting, doing whatever they can, they may be doing the right thing or the wrong thing, fighting the right way, wrong way, I don't care. But the fact that they're there, uh, the fact that there are so many people willing to fight for the environment and animals and things like that, that gives me hope. But also, um, I keep telling myself and I keep telling my students, ours is not to want to change the outcome of things. We didn't cause this. We're not going to fix this by ourselves. Our job is to only fight. Even if this is a losing battle, we don't get to decide the outcome of this battle. We get to decide which side we fight on. And I think about the freedom fighters. I think about the Indian fight for independence, which went on for more than 100 years. And so many of those people who fought in that first part of the century never saw the outcome. They never saw independence, right? They were fighting a losing battle for all they knew, but they fought. And because they fought, 100 years later, we had our independence. So uh, I'm not a religious person, but I am going to quote a scripture here, which has been like on my mind and I've been like going at it over and over. It says, bear with me for a second. It says, Karmanye vadikarastu mahapaleshu kadachana, which is, you have a right to your duty. You have a right to engage in your duty, in your activities, to fight. That is your right. But you don't have a right to desire a certain outcome. That is not being given to you. And it also goes on to say, Ma karma pale hetur bhurma tasangos akarmani, which is, if you don't let go of the outcome, the desire of a certain outcome, if you don't let that go, you are going to be in the company of inaction.
Mm.
Okay, so when people ask me, what is the outcome? Where is the hope? What is going to happen? I can't think about it. Because if I think about it, I will not do anything. I'm just going to freeze up. And I tell myself, I don't know if we're going to win this now. I don't know if you're going to win this ever. I know which side I'm fighting on, and I know I'm fighting, period. That's it.
Um, I know how tough this has been to share these thoughts, and I know there's a huge personal effect for you. And I think we can only, I can I speak for myself? Just the inspiration for that, how inspired I am by you for that fight. And also at the end of the day, regardless of those outcomes, to do what's right.
Yes.
To do what's
Yes.
right.
Yeah.
Sindor, I love you, and we've known each other a while, and I'm going to do. I'll contact you separately after today, but I've got some thoughts about things I can just try and hear. But what is your call to arms then for those listening? And we're going to make sure this gets shared out so people can really understand. Actually, you've added a richness to this issue, I think, which really hits home. It's hit home very deeply for me today. What do you see action looking like for others?
Okay. So first up, we are trying our best to bring awareness to the science of this, the arguments around it, the science arguments, the ethical arguments, the cultural arguments, so on and so forth. So please make yourself aware of it. That is really the first point. So I think the first part of it is don't look away, right? Don't remain ignorant. This is overwhelming. But the least thing that you can do is continue to look, continue to watch. We're trying to do our best to bring you powerful information on this. So become aware of all the arguments around it. Have conversations with us like this, Andy. You've given me a platform. Anybody else who can, I will try my best to engage with your audiences and give them the information. Uh, Talk to others, because remember that part of this argument is also that people in the West don't appreciate this. So that argument, the people in the West argument, is something you can change. And like you said, not everybody is aware of all aspects of this. So make them aware. The more you talk about it, the more chances are that your magazines might pick it up, your media might pick it up. And who knows? I mean, it seems like they're peddling with egos, right? So maybe it is as simple as just media talking about it and somebody's ego is changed or somebody's conscience is changed. I don't know. I don't know where this is at. But the other, and these are big grand things, right? Outcome related. But in terms of doing, industry, actually doing, karma, right? Your activity that you're doing. We are here fighting this on ground. Be there for us. And that might mean just letting people know. For instance, I know Saujanya and Anushri, my students, all of them are trying their best to create awareness. Just let them know that you're listening. Let them know you appreciate them. Give them space to talk about this, but also support them in their work, right? All of our work is suffering, all of our mental health is suffering. So the equivalent of sending a basket of fruits, right? And the equivalent of hugging us while we do this, the equivalent of saying, can I come and do laundry for you while you deal with this? So whatever that is from a distance, however that looks for you, support them uh, in all aspects of that. Keep their morale up. Let them know that it matters to you that they're fighting. I think those kind of things can help. I can't think of much more.
Well, no, I think it's important, and yeah, I'm trying not to get emotional myself, Sindor, because it's this all the depth to which you shared with us today. Uh, I think many people like myself, we really feel it because I can imagine being you. I can imagine being in that situation, and I really appreciate you talking with us today, and Um, I'm gonna, I'll speak to you off air about some things that I'd like to try and do over here. When is that body of work going to be ready to be looked at, the science side of things?
The document is ready with me now. It's sitting in review with a few other people. But if
Mhm.
it's just for your eyes only, I can send it now.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, Sandra. Anything else you'd like to just share before we finish off?
Just that I know many of you have reached out, many of you made videos, many of you have been making posts. I may not react to all of it, but it makes a big difference, right? It makes a big difference. Um, I've it's hard for me to find hope, but what's easier is uh, to feel support and love. That is possible.
Yeah.
And so while I may not have answers to where this is going to go, and I might not be able to even feel hopeful about how this is going to show up, I still can feel loved and supported, and you've been doing that for me. So thank you.
Well, there's a lot of love for you and all the Barks team and everybody that we know actually over there that are really kind of trying to find all these different ways. And I think it's testament to you, Sindor, to your own energies really about finding as well as your own personal story and how it's affecting you and that emotional side of it, but finding that other way of evidence basing and looking at in that wider picture because that's what we need often. Quite often, hearts get involved, which is important, but it's heads that kind of can win the day ultimately. And I think you've managed to do both. Well, thank you so much, Tinder. We love you and keep us posted. Obviously, post anything you want to in the group, of course. And I really appreciate our conversation today.
Me too. I really, I needed this, I suppose. So thank you.
Right, thank you everybody. Thank you for everybody's leaving the comments. Do get this shared out. It'll be kind of YouTube will do its thing, but then you can share from YouTube and let's just try and get this message out. Let's get people thinking and talking. I've got a couple of people that I know are involved on the press over here. I'm gonna kind of, I think this is a great story, and I may well put them in your direction so they can get the right quotes and there. Well, lots of love. Thank you everybody. See you next time for another live on the Dog Center Care YouTube channel. Bye.
Thank you.